buying good chocolate should never be a $2 or $3 proposition for a bar. There's no way. It is too hard and too labor intensive to make that bar for $2 or $3. End of story. Like, not going to happen. I ended up in journalism school, and because it wasn't law school, I paid for it myself. And my mom was like, you'll never have a career. Like, well, you're going to be like a starving artist. If you don't succeed, try again. Like sometimes it just takes something different, something new. Just try and see.
It was just like, get it done. Just get it done now. Like, there was no sympathy. If you had that boss that was sympathetic, that was the exception, not the rule. And we definitely didn't have any DE&I and all of this like touchy-feely stuff that we have now. Like, those just didn't exist.
That's one of the fun things about doing my chocolate tastings is I'm kind of like an ambassador for craft chocolate. I'm not paid by any of these companies. Nobody gives me a kickback for using their chocolate at a tasting. I pay for the bars. I'm never given the bars. I'm literally putting my money where my mouth is.
Welcome back to Marketing Over Chai. Today, I'm joined by Mary Luz Mejia, Canada's first and probably only Level 3 IICCT certified chocolate taster and educator. We'll find out more of what that means when she takes us through her journey. She's a former travel and food journalist turned content marketer. I can't find a better person to tell us about marketing in the chocolate industry. We're discussing content marketing with some chocolate on the side. Welcome, Mary Lou. I'm very happy to have you here. How are you feeling today?
Thank you for having me, Kate.
First things first, what's the drink that gets you going? Mine's some pumpkin spice latte today because of the weather. What do you have?
I came prepared with my A Day Bar's Radiator, which is a spicy hot chocolate with 2 kinds of peppers. We've got ancho and pasilla, cinnamon, and really great, excellent quality cacao. And these guys are here in Ontario in Uxbridge. And Ariane and Eric are absolutely wonderful people. So I like to support local.
Yep. The only thing left to do is for me to taste it. So I'm probably going to put a link in the description if anyone wants that as well, because I'm sure you got all of us salivating now. Let's begin. You've had such a diverse career from being a TV producer and journalist to becoming a certified chocolate taster and content marketer. Can you talk us through this career journey and what inspired each transition?
Yeah, my mom wanted me to be a lawyer, and like like most immigrant children of immigrants, and myself as an immigrant, because I wasn't born here. I was born in Colombia. I thought, okay, maybe what I can do is do some international law, maybe something a little bit more interesting. And as I progressed through 4 years of an undergrad degree at Queen's, I realized, wow, this is really not for me. And I went so far as to take the LSAT. So I ended up in journalism school, and because it wasn't law school, I paid for it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was like, you'll never have a career. Like, well, you're going to be like a starving artist.
Mm-hmm.
And that was her biggest concern. And, much to her surprise, and I think delight, I actually did make a career out of it. I worked at the CBC for a little over 2 years in the national and newsroom. So I worked with Peter Mansbridge. Just, starting out as an editorial assistant, and then from there moved to Florida, where I worked in Spanish language programming. Spanish is my first language.
Mm-hmm.
And then worked a little bit in Vancouver, back to Florida, then worked in documentaries, and then found myself in food TV. And I really found home because I had always wanted to be a chef. But you can imagine how my mom reacted to journalism. So just imagine how she would have reacted. Like when I said, oh, what about if I was a chef? She's like, a chef. You want to be standing up for 18 hours a day with fire, cutting yourself, burning yourself. She's like, yeah, I didn't work this hard to get to this country for you to be a chef. Like, I got the whole lecture. So I was like, okay, maybe that. But I kind of always loved cooking. So whenever and wherever I could, I took cooking classes. I catered on some film sets. I did stuff around food, always around food, and then found myself in food TV and really found I loved that. But I had a child at 41, and I didn't want to do 18-hour days anymore. And while TV sounds really glamorous and some of it was really exciting, it's also very hard work. And you work with a real mixed bag of people. I worked with a lot of very unhappy people. And eventually that just sort of weighed in on me. So I was quite happy to switch, and I just did full-time freelance writing. I'd always been writing. Food and travel culture are my jams, and I still do that on the side. And then eventually, I decided, why not apply to this job at Sobeys? And I got in with a director who had the vision to see that I could offer something to the team that maybe was a little different, because I didn't have a marketing background.
Mhm.
So, it was really funny because when I'd hear the team talk about, well, that's for POS, and I'd be like, because, in my world, POS stands for piece of bleep. So I was like, what are you doing here with POS and KPRs and ROIs? And I had to learn as we went. Um, and my colleagues were very, they were patient because I was learning on the job. And, but I found that I picked up a lot of really interesting tools. And because I have a really wide background, including food festival programming and curating and writing for everything from Royal Caribbean to, Saveur, it added to the mix. So I could say, this for this reason versus that. And I had some sort of experience or grounding. And I had a great 7.5 years at Sobeys, and did a very short stint at Loblaw. And I'm now back into freelancing and seeing what else is next. And I'm still teaching and writing about chocolate.
Wow. That sounds like more like an adventure than like a career journey. Yeah, it's exciting.
It's a roller coaster. I'm not gonna lie. There have been real high highs and real low lows, because some of the low lows are really hard. And what I've learned is, and this is something my late mom taught me, because I was always like, oh my gosh, now this has happened. Like, can you believe it? This thing that I was counting on, this full-time job or this anchor client when I was freelancing, it's gone. And my mom, who, is very spiritual, she just said to me, well, how can you possibly accept something new if your hands are already full?
Wow. That's
And I was like,
beautiful.
good point. Good point. And, that's gotten me through a lot of like those low valleys, because when they're low, man, they are low. And when they're high, they're really high, because you're just like, wow, we did this thing. We produced this thing. This TV show got nominated for a Gemini. So yeah, it's been a real mixed bag.
Mhm.
It's been an adventure, like you say.
That's what I'm finding when I speak to more and more marketers. Everyone is very passionate and connected with their work, and it's very hard to actually separate the emotions from work. So when things
Mm.
go well, and those lows or like failure is a very big part of marketing and everything that goes with, because you're experimenting so much of the time, right? So, but yeah, I'm seeing that as a trend with like almost everyone I'm speaking to, where developing that thick skin has become part of the journey now.
It's true. And I wish, if there are any managers and directors listening to your podcast, uh, it's like that old saying, you get more with honey than vinegar. So if you are the kind of leader who works with people's strengths versus their weaknesses, like there's nothing worse than being assigned something that and they know you're not good at. So like, for example, when I was thrown a huge project management job, that is not my sauce. Like, I am not a great project manager. I can keep my stuff under timeline. I can manage my own workflow, but when it's for like everybody and cross-functional and stakeholders, and you actually need like a project management background to do that kind of work, there are very few untrained project managers who just fall into it that are good. And so if you can really
Mhm.
play with people's strengths and work with what they're really good at, they'll give you 150%. Once you stop listening, once you tune out, once you're like, well, I don't care, you're just going to have to do it, suck it up, buttercup, and all that other
Yeah.
nonsense that happens in the corporate world,
Mhm.
you get people who were once really passionate checking right out.
Yeah.
They just go, okay, you know what? You're giving me 50%, I'll give you 25. And I have seen it so many times. Amazing people, talented people who, because of one lousy manager, just they deflate like a balloon. It's
Yeah.
so wild.
Like my mom says, one rotten apple spoils the whole
Well, the barrel.
bunch. Yeah, it's
And it
like
happens all the time in the corporate world.
it does. Moving to the transition, the various transitions, but particularly from journalism to marketing, how hard was that jump? Because
Well, there was a lot of learning involved. Like I said, there were just terms and corporate lingo and hierarchies and layers of almost bureaucracy, if you will, that had to be satisfied and met on the daily. So once you figured out what was required, the journalism actually was a very good transferable skill because a lot of people can market, but not a lot of people can write.
yeah.
And a lot of people can market, but not a lot of people can tell a really good story. And then you learn how to weave in whatever it is, SEO or, keywords and all that other good stuff into the mix. And I always liked working with data. I had a manager who was like, well, I like insert X, whatever it is. And then we would have to do a whole bunch of content based on the fact that this one individual liked X product. So I always thought that's a weird way to work. Like, why don't we find out what people actually want? Oh, they actually want to know more about tomatoes, or they want to know more about what to do with their glut of basil at the end of the summer. So I always found that the strongest content was filling a void or filling a gap, giving people what they needed, when they needed it, and how they needed it.
Absolutely. In fact, I just shot an episode yesterday about exactly that, where data and where content meet, where storytelling and data meet. And I'm going to link it in here for everyone watching.
Cool.
It's very interesting.
Well, I think that's where the power of content marketing is, because it's like journalism light,
It is.
You're still having to tell that story. You're still having to have like a good introductory sentence. You're still having to have subheads. Interwoven with all of these other elements.
And
but
then
where data and content marketing meet, super powerful.
Yes, because today you're not just writing. Like earlier when it was just paper or when it was non-digital, you were writing exclusively for a person, and your user eye movements and everything were very limited to that one kind of magazine or newspaper that they were. But today the forms are different, the mediums are different. You've got people on their cell phones, you've got people on tablets, you've got people on desktop, you've got people who are just like listening to audio. So how do you tell a story that, works in all these multiple platforms and, still has that kind of captivating power? Like somebody to be really connected with their work and with what they do to do something like that. For a lot of marketers who don't come from journalism, it's about selling and not telling, right? But if you do have that journalism background, you've gone through every press release where you've just like removed every superlative and every bit of exaggeration to make it real, to make it credible, to make it relatable. So I think that's the edge that anyone with some kind of background in writing or in journalism has over everyone else in marketing.
I would agree. And I remember having to tell the same story 5 different ways because, on Flip or Reevy, you have enough room for 140 characters or, not even. And then, there's your banner ad, and then there's the DTC piece, and there's the online experience where there's a fully fleshed out article. And then there's the social piece that a colleague of ours, when we were at Sobeys, who's very talented, would take over. So it was telling that story in 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways, depending on word length. It's like an accordion, expand, contract, and what is it that we're trying to do here? Oh, we're trying to get you to link through, or here we are trying to get you to purchase an item, or here we are trying to get you to click on the coupon. It was really interesting how that all came together and all the different pieces that were required to make that happen for one, story or one campaign or one item.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that people don't often realize. And that's why you never give marketing and communications people advice, because there is a lot more. Everyone thinks they know what they're talking about, and everyone thinks they can, tell us what to do. But honestly, there's a whole bunch of strategy that goes behind every single article and every single word that we're using.
Absolutely.
The most interesting part, and I'm very curious about how you got into it. Like, you're Canada's first level 3 certified chocolate taster. How did this influence your professional path, and how did you integrate that experience with your marketing work, and what really got you to get that certification?
Well, in short, because I love chocolate.
Good
That's
enough reason.
easy. But what happened was when I was working for the Food Network Canada's At the Table With, which was one of the very first biodoc series where we would look at chefs and their lives well before there was Netflix and all of that. One of the subject matter experts, chefs, was this woman named Marisol Presilla. And she is a Cuban woman that lives in the New York area. And she is a cacao expert. And I remember seeing her book, The New Taste of Chocolate, and thinking, wow, like this is a really thorough, look at the world of cacao and what makes good chocolate. And then I interviewed her. I wrote her episode and directed it. And we shot that with her in Miami and New York. And we became friends. And down the road, she kind of said, you know, after I had her at the first Pan American Food and Music Festival in Toronto, too, I invited her and she came, gave two excellent presentations, one of which was on chocolate. And she said to me, you're pretty organized. Why don't you consider running the Canadian leg of the International Chocolate Awards? I'm like, well, what is that? And that was basically about organizing all of the chocolate makers that were participating and getting all of their samples to judges around Canada.
Wow.
And initially it was all done in person. Then COVID hit. Now we're doing it all online. But that's where I started listening to one of her business partners. His name is Martin Christie out of the UK. And he'd be like, we offer these chocolate tasting courses. And I'm like, what's that? Well, you actually learn about like where cacao comes from, how it's grown, who grows it, what the difference is between commercial cacao and bean to bar or craft chocolate. And I said, okay, that sounds interesting. So I decided I'm going to sign up. I took levels 1 and 2 in Toronto with a lot of my chocolate loving colleagues and friends. And then level 3, it came up that they were teaching it in Milan and Turin in 2022, right after COVID. So I grabbed my husband and daughter and I said, guys, we're going to go to Italy and I'm going to do this whole chocolate thing. And while I'm doing this whole chocolate thing, you guys are going to see the sights. And they were like, okay. It wasn't a hard sell. Level 3 was tricky. Like it was tricky. And we had to create a whole brand concept for chocolate using the Italian ingredients that we'd been learning about, like the Bronte pistachios, the Piedmont hazelnuts, the gianduja, all of this stuff. Okay, this is interesting. So we got paired off into groups. And my group had an engineer from Abu Dhabi, a cacao farmer from Brazil, and a chocolate maker, a craft chocolate maker from Essex in the UK, and myself. So we created our own line of chocolate. We gave it this really cool name called Circolo, which means circular because it was like circular economy. The bars would not be bars, they'd be discs. And then we named them after famous Italian families that introduced chocolate to Italy, like the Medici and the Savoy. All of this really fun stuff. And because I had the content marketing background, I knew how to do this. And we did, I think, really a really strong presentation with really great insights into the cacao. It was a lot of work. We had a blind taste test.
Wow.
We had a blind smell test. Then we had 3 chocolates that we'd never tried before, and we had to tell which one was, cane sugar, which was coconut blossom sugar, and it was all really interesting. And yeah, I was the first one in Canada, and so far still the only one. Although I think other colleagues are in the process of getting certified. And that has meant that I am able to, dive deep into chocolate and teach about it, talk about it, do tastings for corporate clients, private clients. My husband has his WSET3 in wine. So sometimes we get together and he does like wine-based liqueurs like ports and eau de vies, and we pair them with really fabulous chocolates. And I'm an eternal student. So this really filled my cup when it came to something that I was really interested in and that's a little bit out there and niche. Not everyone knows as much about chocolate. So I figured, let's do this thing.
And yeah, that's the thing, right? Everybody absolutely loves it. Like there's a handful of people that I would know who, can't eat chocolate.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of us know a lot about it, right? It's something that we love, but yeah, so that's why I find it really fascinating that you did this. And yeah, it just shows your passion, and it's very inspiring that you followed through with it,
Yeah,
Um,
you're never too old to learn. I did this in my 50s and I still plan on taking more courses. There's a cacao evaluation that I want to take. They're currently doing these really interesting deep dives into origins. So the next one is the Dominican Republic, which I can't go to because I'm going to be away, but they're taking a group to the DR, to plantations. And so you're going to like speak to the farmers. You're going to speak to like how this cacao is grown. What kind of cacao is it? The flavor profiles. So, that's what's neat about this world is that you can really geek out. For some people, it's all about the science, the chemistry, the olfactory and the taste and how that breaks down chemically. For some people, it's about the genetics of the cacao and they want to go there. That's where they deep dive. For me, it's about the storytelling and the human angle and the flavor profiles and also the socioeconomic stuff. I think it's important that people know that a lot of the candy bars they're buying in grocery stores are picked by slave labor, children in a lot of parts of the world, but most prominently West Africa. And they're getting moldy cacao that then has to be over roasted. So the number one ingredient in a candy bar isn't cacao, it is sugar.
oh wow.
Yeah. So that's like a little FYI for you. And I know I'm probably breaking hearts and killing dreams out there because they're like, what?
Yeah, no, but if you didn't tell us, we would never know, right? So
Well,
thank
this
you.
is it. And I think like anything else, like a good wine or olive oil or even your produce, you get to vote with your wallet every day. And you buying good chocolate should never be a $2 or $3 proposition for a bar. There's no way. It is too hard and too labor intensive to make that bar for $2 or $3. End of story. Like, not gonna happen.
Wow, that has given me a lot to think about and a lot to like research before I take another big bite of chocolate. We moved to the icebreaker section where we get to know you a little bit better. So I have some quick questions for you, and just let me know the first thing that comes to your mind.
Sure.
There are no wrong answers, so have a little fun with this.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Yeah. What's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl-ish.
Long form content or short form content?
Long form for sure.
City or the countryside?
Seaside.
Whoa. Hobby you are passionate about?
Always writing.
Marketing trends of 2024 according to you?
Marketing trends, let's see, that are calling to me. I like the fact that a lot of, especially in the food space, a lot of things are going back to things that are a lot more doable, and there's more use and focus on, not wasting, repurposing, not throwing out, making this finished dish and turning into that finished dish. Like, I like to see that because, in the West, we waste so much food. So that's, and I come from Colombia where there's a lot of hunger. So that makes me feel good.
Yeah, they're calling it upcycling food with I grew up in India, so I saw a lot of like food waste is a very bad thing, and like, you grow up just not that's kind of like a model sin status in India, because you do see a lot of people not really getting their calorific intake. So yeah. That was one of the biggest culture shocks when I moved here. It's like, okay, there's a lot of food going bad, and but it's a different world, and it's just a different world, I guess.
Well, I think we can all do better, though. I mean, it's a different world, but there are still people in our cities here in Canada that are very hungry.
Yeah,
and like we can do better. Like, we can, make sure that we're not wasting what we buy, because it's something like 45%. It's really.
Absolutely. A book that you would recommend?
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Oh my God, I used to love that in college.
Yeah, I still do. I think it's such a beautiful book.
Mm-hmm. Best piece of marketing advice you've ever received?
If you don't succeed, try again. Like sometimes it just takes something different, something new. Just try and see. Do an A/B. Give it a go.
Mm-hmm. Never give up. So we're moving to the next section, which is where we talk about the state of the industry. So tell us about chocolate marketing landscape here in North America. To me, it seems like a very diverse space because you've got luxury offerings and then you've got the everyday snack bars, you've got artisan brands, and that's just the B2C side of things, just a part of the B2C side of things.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the industry and like what you do for it.
It's a complicated industry because I think coffee has it more right. Like what you're getting when you're buying a tin of a mass-produced coffee. You know what's in there, and you're okay with it because that's the price, or you like that flavor profile. But with chocolate, it's in that really interesting murky gray area because what I see happening is a lot of greenwashing and what I like to call bean to bar washing. So commercial premium brands, and that's the stuff that a lot of chocolatiers buy in bulk, pre-tempered chocolates in big blocks or pastilles. They melt it down and turn it into like bonbons, which are truffles, or barks or bars by adding flavors and inclusions, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the language that's been used in bean to bar craft chocolate has been co-opted by these guys selling not bean to bar. And there's all these other interesting certifications that they'll put on bars to make them sound like, so therefore this is really good. And it's confusing to the customer because the customer's like, but this says it's Rainforest Alliance, it's fair trade, it's all these other things, like, so this should be like a really good bar, right? And sadly, sometimes the answer is no, because a lot of really great farmers who do grow beautiful cacao can't afford the certifications. So are we going to not buy that really awesome cacao from India because the farmers just didn't have the money to pay all the way down the line? So a lot of these organizations started with really great intentions, but their bureaucracy and the organizations grew and got swollen. And so you have to make this decision. So I always say to people, if you take out all that greenwashing and all of that, marketing jargon, look for something like, that's made locally. Hummingbird, for example, is a bean to bar maker, a craft bar maker here in Canada in Almont, Ontario, just outside of Ottawa. They've won a ton of different awards for this bar. It's 60% cacao. That's how much chocolate or cacao is actually in the bar. And dark milk it's like a milk chocolate, only a little richer. This one is using cacao from Colombia, and it says single origin Colombia here. So you know where your beans are coming from. And they use Canadian dried milk powder in it. So you're getting this most creamy, dreamy, it's like the nicest, yummiest, fudgiest kind of brownie. So what I look for is, bars that say like pure craft from bean to bar. And if they have an award on them, like even better, like this one's a fabulous bar. This is Soma here in Toronto. You can see here, this has won an international chocolate award. This is their white mango lassi.
Oh, interesting.
It is absolutely delicious. And this is a white chocolate, and I would be the first to tell you I hate white chocolate. And then I tried the Soma fruit bar lineup, and I was like, I don't hate white chocolate. This is really, really good. Oh, and Soma is one of the most well-known bean to bar makers in Canada. They're the OGs. They started in the early 2000s, and they were like really the first here in Canada.
Okay, so
these are things that you can look for and find yourself, like the same people that did that beautiful hot chocolate that I'm drinking. This is their anise hyssop fig, it's 72%. That's how much cacao you're getting. And again, all of these say bean to bar and direct trade, which, is even better than fair trade because you're paying the farmer at the other end a much higher than fair trade price for their cacao. And these bars are they're like a fine wine. You don't want to munch these down. We say melt, don't munch. So you melt them on your tongue. You don't go, because the candy bar industry wants you to do that so that you don't actually taste the cacao that you're eating because it's going to taste like icing sugar at best.
And then you're going to eat more also, right? If you're just chewing it down.
Well, this is it. And because it's full of sugar, which is addictive, you just keep eating more of it.
Absolutely. So moving to like the seasonal impact on your marketing efforts on this industry, because I know for a fact that I tend to eat more chocolate in the colder months than I do in the summer. It's like summer is vanilla and ice cream time. So tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There are bumps in the season where people know it's chocolate giving time. So it starts with Halloween, and then there's always some chocolate sales and Thanksgiving. The holidays are huge with advent calendars, Valentine's, of course, and special occasion birthdays, et cetera, et cetera. Corporations are picking this up and getting like really good quality bean to bar chocolate as gifts and, moving away from the commercial stuff. And so, yeah, there are definite seasons. And, I wrote a piece for the Globe and Mail about why I don't give out Halloween candy for Halloween. I give out chips. Spoiler alert.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I give out bags of chips because I figure, A, these kids are already going to be on a sugar high par excellence for months. But B, I just don't want to put my hard-earned money into the pockets of corporations that really have nobody's interest at heart but their own. B, I don't think this is really good quality cacao. And I think, we're doing our kids a bit of a disservice and ourselves by gobbling down moldy cacao that's been over roasted and just hit with a lot of sugar and flavorants, preservatives, colors, just to make them appealing. I think our kids deserve better too. So I just don't do it.
That's an interesting thing because last year I remember reading something about somebody in Oakville not giving out chocolate, not giving out candy, and he had like either a potato or something, he had candy and a potato, and he would ask the kids what they wanted, and most of them went for the potato.
Which is potato chips?
No, just a potato, like a potato. Yeah.
Okay, because there is like the odd woman that lives right around the corner from my sister-in-law, and she was giving out, I'm not kidding, I think it was like little tubs of yogurt or like dental floss or something. And I thought, well, a kid still wants a treat. Like, I get it. I'm a mom. I have a newly minted teen here. So I'm not going to be giving out trail mix snack packs or anything. It's chips and kids love chips.
Yeah.
And I mean like a good old fashioned potato chip, not the processed corn variety.
Yeah.
Because they get enough of those everywhere else. So I figure, okay, like we can do this and make it fun. And kids are like, chips, like I can take those to school in my backpack. Like it'll be great.
Yeah.
And so I don't ever get any pushback for potato chips. It's funny that the guy was giving out like a potato, like, here, is that to your mom to make into mashed potatoes? Like,
no, but I think it was really funny because it was something that the kids don't expect, right?
yeah.
So for them, it's just like a novelty factor. Like, oh my God, you know what? It's a story for school the next day. I went to this one house and they gave me a potato.
Like I've heard of yo-yos. I remember when I was a kid, we this guy had a choice of yo-yos or little kazoos. I don't know. This was working class Hamilton. And I remember thinking, I'm getting me a yo-yo.
But it's just different, right? I think that's what works also. Okay, more into learning about artisan chocolate. And you kind of showed us about some of the things that we need to, take into consideration when we look for a good bar.
Yeah.
How do smaller chocolate brands differentiate themselves from mass market competitors? Like, especially when budgets for marketing are tighter. Like you mentioned that they can't always afford these alliances and certifications and licenses, but they're still making like quality stuff. So what are things they can do to differentiate themselves?
Well, I mean, it's really about A, it's about telling a good story, and B, more importantly, when it comes to the consumer, it's for buying a bar like this, it's going to be try before you buy. A lot of people, they want to know if they're getting something like this. She's a pretty new chocolate maker out of New Brunswick.
Oh,
They're going to want to try something called basil tomato chocolate that is from Semliki, Uganda. So she
mm,
took really awesome fruity cacao from Uganda, and she has added organic maple sugar, sweet basil, and dehydrated tomato. So how to sell something like this? Because you're seeing here it's bean to bar chocolate handcrafted in New Brunswick, Canada. The only way is really to taste,
mhm,
and then once you taste it, you might think to yourself, like, this is so different and so unique and so much better than insert X. And it's the same for hot chocolate. There's no way that you can compare this to something that you can get at any grocery store that's, 80% sugar.
mhm. No, but also like when you listed out those ingredients, like the only thing I can think of is pasta. Like I would never have dreamed that I could find that in a chocolate bar.
Right.
And
So
just
that's what makes it so fascinating, is because this has got what they call inclusions, and a lot of these have, but there's something like Contu is one of like Canada's, I think they're one of Canada's best. They're in Montreal, Quebec. They use Peruvian cacao from all over the country. And this one is called Rêve de Cashmere, or, Dreams of Cashmere. And it's a goat milk cacao.
interesting.
Um, and it's fabulous. It's cacao beans from Bagua, cane sugar, goat milk powder, and cocoa butter. That's it. That's all. And my husband loves this bar.
Mhm.
He's a real cheese fanatic. So for him, this has those tangy notes, and he thinks and I agree, it's a beautiful bar. But, a lot of this will say, bean to bar, handcrafted craft chocolate. And the only way to really decide whether you like that or not is to taste it. So often, if you go to these small shops or you go to chocolate shows, there's one in Ottawa on the 20th, they have samples galore. They want you to try before you buy. And that's the only way you're going to know whether that appeals to you or not. Um, but the other side is definitely telling that story of, where was this from? What makes this special? Why in the Blue Hills of Jamaica is Desmond Singh important?
Mhm.
What is he doing there? He's a Rastafari farmer. So all his guys are Rastafaris, and they go into the bush for days and come back with tons of cacao. But, they live off the land. They're very organic, but they don't have the paperwork. And so they just chop down weeds as they go, carve themselves a path into the cacao trees, pick the cacao, and they've got amazing cacao from this one area in Jamaica. But it's all about telling that story, and also knowing that, what you're doing is supporting a local business here in Canada or wherever you're buying that chocolate from, as well as farmers further afield who are getting more than, fair trade. And I keep going back to that because now fair trade is almost the same as a commodity price, because cacao is traded on the New York Stock Exchange, just like coffee is, and just like sugar
Mhm.
is, just so you know.
Mhm.
And so the average farmer in Uganda makes 80 cents US a day, which even in, not Uganda, sorry, like Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire, even there, that's not enough to live on. Like, let's
Mhm.
be serious.
That's important to know, I think.
Yeah.
Going to like the future and the trends that we're seeing in the industry, are these like you've touched upon a lot of the things that are related to ethically produced chocolate, and what are the key trends you're seeing in the in chocolate marketing, especially when it comes to consumer preferences for artisanal? Because there are more artisan brands out there that are available and that are accessible and easy to find because most of them are online. Um,
Yeah. It's really tricky because I've done tastings where people are like, I only eat chocolate from Switzerland, or like that is like some great thing, and I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, okay, you really don't understand, unfortunately, that these are not cacao growing places. These are places that have developed and furthered techniques, absolutely, conching came from Rudolf Lindt. And he kept that little secret to himself for like 30 some odd years before the cacao industry kind of figured out that like this constant grinding away turns this cacao liquor into like this finest micro nano particle that helps give you that creamy mouthfeel when the chocolate melts in your mouth. But saying that a really good chocolate is therefore Swiss or Belgian is like, simply saying that all wine from Italy is exceptional, which isn't true. What you need to know is that that's a lot of marketing.
Yeah. And it's
So,
years and years of that story being told, right?
well,
So
yeah.
part of
So,
you just
you even
believes
have
that
like,
it's
you have the guy with the little chef hat and the ladle pouring the dripping chocolate, and he looks like he knows what he's doing. He's like this master chocolatier. He's an actor, put on the clothes, and did a good job for a big company out of Europe. And
okay.
they use a lot of mixed quality cacao. A lot of it is moldy and it's not great. But what's happening is like, because it says this name or that name, and people are like, those are luxury brands, and you're paying a premium for these. Like, let's be clear, because it says made in Switzerland or made in Belgium or made in France or made in Germany. But then you have to ask, where's this cacao from? What percentage am I getting? Is it single estate? Is it mixed? Is it bean to bar? Is it craft? Or did you buy a couverture that's like commercial premium and still very dubious in its origins and not that great quality? But because I'm paying for all this marketing, I'm going, and the boxes are beautiful. You're paying for the boxes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you've got these like sweet I've seen velvet boxes. I've seen leather covered boxes. I've seen all the boxes with these beautiful papers and stuff. I hate to burst bubbles, but sometimes what you're paying for is like the name of the thing and the marketing behind it versus the fact that it's actually really delicious, well-made, handcrafted. And maybe it is really well-made and handcrafted, but if you've got your raw base ingredient then that's, it's as good as it's going to get. And so I always say to people, support local. There's excellent, excellent chocolate makers here in Canada who work from the bean to the bar and beyond. Like, there's our neighbors here in Buffalo. This is dark forest chocolate, and they've won awards. And this is 100% dark. And they'll tell you where it's from. It's 2-ingredient cocoa butter and the cacao mass and
Nice.
there are ways to get around all of this double speak because by obfuscating and confusing the customer and convincing them that it's like a few countries in Europe that only make the best chocolate, which by the way isn't true. Some of the best chocolate makers in the world happen to be like in Asia. Some of them are here in Canada. They're all over the world now. And if you're really interested, just follow the International Chocolate Awards and you'll see who's winning.
I think the other thing over there is like when you look at big brands, you just assume they have like certain quality standards in place.
Right.
And you tend to trust them because, they have this certification that is definitely, doing something. Like you assume it's doing something and, keeping a check on quality, and it's coming from a certain country where their food standards are pretty high. It's also like one notion that I think, the smaller anyone not from those countries needs to pay attention to, because their practices could be safe and their practices could be of even higher quality. But just because the average consumer may not really know that, so some transparency on their processes and the quality that they're using, if they talk more about it, I think I'm more likely to trust what they do.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a chocolate nerd, as is obvious. So for me, if I don't have time to taste all these bars, I'll see if any of them won an international chocolate awards or, you know, like a, really, really high end award because ours are blind tasted. So you never know, like you don't have the name of the company. There are ways to figure out certain things. Absolutely. You'd have to be asleep not to figure out some of the ways. But listen, some of the times, unless you're up on every chocolate maker in the world and their mold, which I'm not, you're getting these chocolates and you just have like a code number and a description, and you're trying to like just taste as you go. And so if I see that it's won a silver or a gold or a bronze at the International Chocolate Awards, the international level, this is like the best of the best of the best.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, there's traceability is a huge thing for the awards. So where it came from and who it was made by and how, it matters. So if you're really stuck and you're really not sure, like, forget the marketing of, the big companies from Europe, despite their, or not, and go with something that for a fact, like traceability matters, where it's coming from. And people with really great palates who are other tasters or their sommeliers or their cicerones or their cheese tasters or what have you, have tasted these from around the world and decided, yeah, these are really, really exceptional bars. And you're putting your money into, again, like small businesses as well as the farmer who grew that cacao. So that's one way that I find to be maybe not foolproof, but definitely much better than just eating up the marketing from the little man in the white chef hat pouring the chocolate and looking so focused as it pours.
So what do you see are the biggest growth opportunities for chocolate brands, and how can they stay ahead of the curve in terms of content marketing strategies?
Yeah, a lot of these really small companies don't have the time, the budget, or the energy to do a lot of content marketing. So, some of them, like at Hummingbird, they do tours of their facility. So if you're at Almont, you can sign yourself up for this, I think it's free, a free little like 15, 20-minute tour of their facility. And they have a retail shop and as well as a little cafe where you can get a cup of excellent hot chocolate or a chocolate chip cookie or a brownie or buy some bars. I mean, telling the stories, getting at the who, the how, the why, how you're making it different, what you're doing, all of these things take so much time, like posting on social, posting reels, like all
Absolutely.
of that takes so much time and energy. And a lot of these folks they're busy making chocolate. So it's, it's really hard for them. And in between all this, the big guys have seen that like some of the market is shifting. And so they're like, okay, we'll use the same words. We're going to call ourselves craft chocolate. We're going to say we're bean to bar. We're going to say we're eco certified. We're going to come up with this new certification that means nothing, but it sounds really fabulous. And they do that. Like the big boys, they do that all the time. This is now blah, blah, blah certified, and it means this, and we're giving back to the community, and we're doing this for sustainability. It doesn't mean a thing. But people believe it, and they're like, oh, so therefore, this thing here must be really good. I'll get it because it's this certified. So you have to be almost smarter than the big companies and stay true to who you are. And I think in the craft chocolate world, we need to come up with a better definition of what that is. And there's a lot of work to do on how to market that, and that's one of the fun things about doing my chocolate tastings is I'm kind of like an ambassador for craft chocolate. I'm not paid by any of these companies. Nobody gives me a kickback for using their chocolate at a tasting. I pay for the bars. I'm never given the bars. And, I'm literally putting my money where my mouth is.
I think there's a lot of space and a lot of work to be done in that industry for like marketers like us, and tell those stories, help them tell those stories actually, because like you said, I guess making the chocolate itself is a lot of work, and
So much.
they do need that help. So yeah.
It is literally from the bean to the bar. So if you can imagine, you have to sort them, you have to roast them, you have to like winnow them, you have to do all these things to get to a point where you're like, yeah, that's the expression of this cacao that I want. It isn't about just melting a bar and then going.
Of course not. That brings us to the next section, which is about work-life balance. And, while you're not making the chocolate and you are working on marketing it, and that is also a very demanding job. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you, like 10 being the most balanced, what do you think your work-life balance is at the moment?
Well, at the moment, it's in flux. During my bereavement, I was let go without cause from my last job. So I have been taking this time to do things for myself that I haven't had the time to do before, and freelancing because I still have bills to pay, of course. So right now, it's really at like a 5. Like it's okay because I'm managing the workflow that that comes in, what comes in, and what goes out, but when I worked full time and I was doing all these other things, it was like a 9. And we in North America just we do not put enough value on, our own self-care because it's, people
Yeah.
work so hard that like I've had managers come in with walking pneumonias.
Well,
I had a manager come in to work and this individual carried a bag in her purse because she was on the verge of throwing up and showed up to work. And I'm just like, why? Like, if you think that, you're being heroic, you're not. Like, A, I don't know what you have. Do you want to get us all sick? B, and I remember saying this to this person, if you think this or any company is going to be so grateful to you because you died in their parking lot getting here, they're going to feel bad. They're going to be like, my goodness, that's a terrible thing to have happen. And then they're going to refit that, they're going to fill your position and move on. So like
yeah.
what is it? I get that people want a career, they want to move up, they want to make money, they want whatever. I get all that. I've been there. But I am amazed at how little people put importance on taking care of themselves and doing the things that fill them with some joy because it's like, well, I can't. I've got to go to this thing. Or, my kid needs me to do that. And we sit, we eat, overeat, we stress eat, we don't exercise, we don't move, we don't take care of our bodies. And then our physical and mental health it's this one big snowball. And I've seen it so many times. I worked with one woman, young woman. She would be sending emails out at 11. And I don't think she's doing that anymore because I think she's a mom now. But I just remember thinking like, how?
Yeah.
Nobody's paying you to work from 9, 10, 11. Like nobody. That's on you because you chose to.
Yeah, it's complicated because you don't know, like a lot of times the work environment is so bad and the demands and the pressures, especially if you're new to a country and stuff. A lot of people,
I understand.
take that on just because there's
I
the
do.
fear of losing work, right?
Absolutely.
So
But
yeah,
this is where like, you keep hearing these things like healthy boundaries.
yeah,
And you've got to set those for yourself too, even in a
that's true.
corporate environment, or you will be taken to town
Yeah.
and you will be at your desk at midnight having a panic attack because
Yeah.
something was, slipped your mind. I don't think we do a good job of it in North America. And, I worked in the States and it's even worse there. Like over there, if you took 2 weeks in a row, or if you took 2 weeks holiday, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think North America has a lot to learn from Europe, I guess, when it comes to better vacation and work-life balance.
just a work-life balance.
But we're way ahead of the curve when you compare it to like some of the things that have happened in
China
India.
or
So
India, yeah.
it's I think everyone's learning and growing and progressing, and
Yeah.
there's much
And
to be
everybody's got their
thankful.
own path. Like for some people, work is number one, second, third. And you know what? Power to the people. Like if that's what you want, I'm like, you do
Mhm.
you.
Yeah,
Um,
and there are
but
different
I really
phases in
like,
life, I guess. Different
yeah,
phases in life
yeah.
are
And
different
everybody's
things.
got different phases. Like I was all work, all go when I worked in TV. And then eventually the 18-hour days just killed me. Like
Yeah,
I don't want to do them again.
it
I
has
just don't.
burnout is real, and I think there's more awareness now also about what burnout is. People talk about it
Exactly.
very early on, so you're able to identify it. Like there is enough of information out there. Like 10 years ago, there wasn't. So
No.
if you went through it, you found out for yourself firsthand, and then you got out
Yeah,
of it.
I'm
But
Gen X. It was like, there was no like, oh, are you okay? Are you feeling all right? Are you good? Feeling a little burnt out. It was just like, get it done. Just
Yeah.
get it done now. Like, there was no sympathy. There was no,
Yep.
if you had that boss that was sympathetic, that was the exception, not the rule.
Hmm.
And we definitely didn't have any DE&I and all of this like touchy-feely stuff that we have now. Like, those just didn't exist. Like, oh, are your feelings hurt? Too bad. Like, that's how it was.
Whoa, that's a lot to deal with. That, especially if you're like a young kid just getting into the workforce. I can imagine that could be
It was
overwhelming.
wild. Like, this is why, like, they joke on social media that Gen X that were feral. Well, yeah, we were latchkey kids. We were taking care of ourselves by the time we were 10. And it's not a joke. Like, I remember having the little key under my t-shirt that I would pull, I'd look around, I'd pull out, open the door and, you know, lock the door behind me, make my own snack, get my
Wow.
homework started. Like, there was very little supervision. Mom and dad were working double shifts. Like, my brother and sister were much older. They weren't around.
Wow.
So it's really funny because, they joke around, like, the term is fuck about, find out. And I always laugh at that because I'm like, yeah, that kind of does sum up the generation. Like, yeah, we're not that good at taking a lot of junk, but we've had to. And I think that's why, like, my generation is at the point where we're just like, no, I'm not doing that again. No, step off. And that can get us into hot water.
Yeah. But yeah, I think everything moving forward is better, like from a mental health perspective. Like Gen Z is very up on it, and they're very aware of what is right and what isn't, and they're vocal. They're strong enough to talk about stuff when they can't handle something. And I think everyone else's approach has also changed. So it's interesting to see what the next 10 years will look like.
Very.
Yeah, and even like maternity leaves and things like that are getting better. So
Yeah. I
is
mean,
you're
look,
seeing a holistic change.
I'm hopeful. I am hopeful that leadership realizes that
Mhm.
things can't stay the same because it's not sustainable.
Mm.
So, yeah, and within all that, and within the corporate labyrinth, you have to find your own path and be your own advocate.
Absolutely. So with that note, like what advice do you have for aspiring marketers if they're looking for chocolate or anything that is super niche, if they're looking to get into that space and maintain work-life balance as they do that?
Well, here's the cool thing is whatever you're interested, somebody else out there is interested in it, right? From fermented food to agricultural practices to the genetics of tomatoes. Like, there is a niche and there are people that are super interested in it. So find your tribe. Find the
Hmm.
people that are interested in what you're interested in. Learn from them. Learn together. Join associations, network, do all those old school and new school things. Join Zoom calls. Do them and see where you can add value. See where your voice can make a difference. And if you're going to say it, stand behind it.
Absolutely. So here's the part where I like to give my guests like a minute or two to talk about, what they do and their businesses and their passion projects. Whatever you'd like to share with our audience, the floor is yours.
Well, one of the funnest things I know to do is to get together with what I call Choco Curious people and have them taste really, really awesome bars from white to milk chocolate, dark milk to dark. Explain the differences, explain different flavor profiles of different cacaos, and really make it an interactive experience. So it's not just about me talking. We have a conversation. What do you want to know? And invariably you have the bakers in the group. You have the wine people in the group who are like trying to find the similarities between wine and chocolate. And then you have the craft chocolate makers from at home that are trying to do this stuff. And then you just have people who love really good tasting things. And it's a real joy to be able to give them food for thought. And they walk away going, wow, I didn't know that about this. Or, I am sold on this. I hated dark chocolate. And now I realize I don't. I was just having the burnt stuff. And that's why I didn't like it. So it's really fun to really get people to think about their palates and how those work in relation to something like chocolate, which is such a big topic. And yeah, like I said earlier, I do that for, done that for corporations, C-suite executives, lawyers, bankers, to private people at home who want a tasting for their family and friends.
Mhm.
And that's just, that for me isn't work. That's fun.
Or do you have like a website, or how do people get in touch with you if they want to book a session?
They can reach me via email, maryluz.mejia@gmail.com, or they can go to my Instagram at mlmejia123. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Mary Luz Mejia. And they can reach out to me and we can connect via telephone or via email, or, and I can customize something for you.
Sure. So I'm going to be sure to leave all those links in the show notes so you can, reach Mary Lou and ask her about what she can do for you. And yeah, thank you so much, Mary Lou, for taking the time to be here and to, tell me so
Thanks,
much
Kate.
about chocolate. Can't wait to get my hands on some of those bars. I am going to start looking for them. Yeah, it's got me very curious. I did not know about the mold situation at all, and I am allergic to mold. So I'm going to start like keeping an eye out and like seeing if that affects me when I eat it as well. Because I know they roast it, but you never really know, right? So
Well,
yeah,
this
but
is it. I have a friend who's like, I can't eat chocolate because it gives me acid reflux. And I'm like, whoa, that could be the mold. And yeah, they
yeah.
burn it off, but it's still there because the mold happens when you're fermenting the cacao. If it's not properly fermented,
Yeah, because there's this one brand that I noticed really lately that when I had it at night, my throat would close up.
you're like allergic to it then.
I am allergic to mold, yes.
So
So,
try like a Soma Hanging Gardens
mhm,
milk chocolate. If you like milk chocolate, they also have it in dark.
mhm,
That stuff tastes like dulce de leche. It's amazing.
mhm.
55% milk chocolate, or you can go for a higher percentage. And try that and let me know. It's cacao from Haiti.
Wow.
And yeah, I'd love to hear what your experiences were.
I will let you know. And yeah, I'm really thankful I learned about this, especially the mold thing, because now I know how to take care of myself better, right? So thank you
Absolutely.
so much for taking the time. It's been great, and I will be in touch.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your support and you all being here. I'm on a mission to get 100 listeners on Spotify, and I'd really appreciate it if you all can share, like, and go follow me on Spotify as well. It does mean a lot. I have a lot of exciting episodes coming up in the next few weeks, so make sure you're subscribed, tune in regularly, and keep those ideas brewing until I see you next time on Marketing Over Chai. This is Kate signing off.